Hey everybody, I'm Mike Carlson,
I'm Brian Heisenberg.
and this is the View from the U.
All right, Mike. Before we begin, just so you know, viewers, we're going to be changing the show up a little bit. To begin each show, we're going to talk about something that really matters to us in college football. Mike's going to be covering the Heisman race, and I'll be covering the current standings in the top 25. So, without further ado, here's Mike with his views on the Heisman race.
Okay, Brian, I'm going to start off the Heisman race with my top three guys right now. And to start it off, I think it's Johnny Manziel's Heisman Trophy to lose. I mean, this guy is the defending champ of the Heisman Trophy. So he really automatically kind of gets first crack at it in my book. And then behind him, I have Marcus Mariota. He's Oregon's quarterback. And we've seen a lot of great quarterbacks out of Oregon, but we haven't seen a lot of excellent, elite quarterbacks out of Oregon. You look at guys like Dennis Dixon and some of those other guys, and they were great quarterbacks, but they never were as good as Mariota is. And I think in a high-powered Oregon offense, this guy's going to see the ball a lot, and I think that Johnny should be wary of this guy because he could easily pass him with a good week. And then finally, I want to round it out with Jameis Winston. This is my guy. This is one of my favorite players. Brian, this guy's played exceptionally well. 17 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. He's a freshman, and I think a lot of the props goes to his wide receiving core. I mean, these guys have broke him in well, and he's not in that kind of Tom Brady situation where you have a couple rookie wide receivers and you have a great quarterback. I mean, actually, it's the opposite. He's a rookie quarterback, but he has a lot of great wide receivers. And I mean, I looked at this guy's efficiency rating, and I think it was somewhere near the 200s, upwards in the 200s, and that's unheard of for a lot of college football quarterbacks, because you're looking at guys who aren't full products yet. They're not complete. They still have they still have a room to grow, and they still have areas to develop in. So those are my top three. But as of right now, Johnny Manziel is the guy in the Heisman race. Didn't have a great week last week against Ole Miss, but I think he's going to rebound this week, and he's going to have another stellar performance, I think.
Yeah, Mariota's obviously the biggest surprise to me because he really sort of came on the map for me this year because when you usually see the name of an Oregon quarterback, I'm like, oh, he gets his face on the camera to take the snap and then hand it to the running back. But Mariota is just such a talented football player, and it's really great at a school like Oregon, which is shown through their rank.
And exactly, Brian. I mean, you look at these quarterbacks and you automatically point to the offense that they're running in. It's a spread offense with a lot of speed, a lot of power, a lot of missed tackles, and you automatically, I guess, kind of knock him down a couple of points because he's in such a high octane offense. And I think that's very unfair to do to Mariota because this guy, he throws a great ball, he runs well, he passes well, he's got great ball carrier vision, great downfield vision as a quarterback. And like I said, one good week, and Johnny Manziel has one bad week. We can easily see those guys go switch to 1 and 2 in the standings.
Yeah. So this week, looking at the top 25, there are 6 teams that I want to cover in their current positions. The first one of them is Louisville. I know, they're ranked in the top 10. They're from a small division, and Teddy Bridgewater is a great quarterback, but I'm just not sure if they're in the proper place because while they have gone undefeated and they have had some very commanding wins, they haven't really proven themselves against a Big Ten or an SEC division, except of course Kentucky. But I'm not exactly sure they count up in the race with Alabama and A&M and all those schools. So, we'll see. I could be wrong, but as of now, I'm not sure that they deserve a top 10 position when I'm pretty sure A&M, LSU should be ranked higher. Also, I want to talk about Stanford. I'm a Stanford fan, as you can see from our first episode, so naturally I'm upset about them being upset by Utah. But what makes me more upset is how they dropped in the ranks, because I compared this to Kansas State when they lost to unranked Baylor last year. Because when they did that, they only dropped 5 places. In that, they dropped from 1st to 6th, and it was pretty much a blowout by Baylor. And Utah barely edged Stanford, and Stanford dropped 8 places. So again, I'm not sure that Stanford has to go all the way down there just for being upset one game, because it happens, and it doesn't really say that they're any worse team or that they wouldn't stand a chance against, like, again, A&M or another very high seed. So moving one down with Missouri and Georgia, those are sort of together because they played each other. Now Missouri, I'm not sure about them if they should be in that position, because And also Georgia, I think they should be around the 20s, if not in the top 25 at all, because you have to take into account the injuries. I thought it was a lot like Michigan, is that when you rank them like this, sometimes they're ranking them so with the idea that they have all their starters in there, um, and that they're playing to their full potential. Because I do believe that Georgia would have won had they had all their starters, and I'm not sure they deserve such a high rank without them coming into the game. But I think it reflects more unfairly on Mizzou than it does Georgia, because 14 is very generous to give to a school that just be basically half of a freshman team. So and the final two schools are 24 and 25. 24 being Auburn, one of my favorite schools, my top SEC schools. I'm glad that they're in there, especially after just such a horrible season last year. I mean, they've had some dominant wins. They won by 59 last week. So I'm really excited to see, and we'll see if they can hold that against A&M, which, I mean, it's going to be a really tough test. And finally, Wisconsin. I'm not really sure they ever should have left the top 25, because I'm pretty sure their only two losses were to Arizona State and Ohio State. The Arizona State one is sort of up in the air based on that call that where the time ran out and they lost. So I'm not sure that is a reflection on how good the team is, and also they really shouldn't drop after losing to Ohio State. So Mike, now I'm going to pitch it back to you for your call on A&M and Ole Miss.
Thanks, Brian. This was a really unique game for me because my aunt and uncle, both Ole Miss alumni, were at that game with their kids, and who are my cousins, and they were not happy with the results of the game, to say the least. Johnny Manziel, he did what Johnny Manziel does best. He found a way to win. Didn't have any passing touchdowns, but he managed to have 2 rushing touchdowns, threw 1 interception in the end zone. It wasn't in the red zone, but it was a critical interception, but he found a way to win. And I just want to say hats off to this Ole Miss team. I mean, Bo Wallace came in, not really known for his arm strength or for his arm in general, but he played a great game, hung with Johnny Manziel. But when you give Johnny Football Brian the ball back with about a minute to go, 9 times out of 10 he's going to convert, and that's part of the reason he won the Heisman. And a really cool thing that I saw was that, Texas A&M's kicker, Brian, he's the kicker for the team. He goes to the university, but little known fact about him, he used to play on FC Dallas, the MLS soccer club for Texas, in the Texas area. And man, this guy's got a boot. I mean, you can obviously tell that he's a soccer player. He's got a strong leg. There was a lot of controversy in practice who they were going to go with if the game was on the line. And head coach Kevin Sumlin clearly made the right decision in this guy. And he's such a treat to watch, and it's really cool that you're playing for FC Dallas one day, and now you're kicking for one of the top 10 universities in all the country. And I want to go back to your top 25 conversation, Brian, and spotlight a team that I really like. I'm talking about the Baylor Bears. I'm going to call them Ducks South for right now, because Nike pimps these guys out with so much stuff. It's ridiculous. I mean, they have so many different uniform combinations: gold helmets, silver helmets, different jerseys. I mean, the combinations are endless, and it's reflected. They're playing like the Ducks right now. They're averaging about 50 points per game in the Big 12. And they look to be a really good team. Not really sure about how great they are. Haven't really played any tough opponents yet, but they're a treat to watch. And it's pretty much exactly the Oregon Ducks team. Just they're in Texas for now.
Brilliant.
And now I'm going to turn it over to you for your game.
All right. Well, I mean, obviously your game, the way more interesting. The two I actually got caught missing some of the third quarter watching the conclusion of that. And really my game, I had Oregon State versus Washington State. There really isn't much to say. It was these offenses doing what they normally do. They're big passing offenses. And the reason the final score turned out like that is because Oregon scored something like, I think, 35 unanswered second half points, and Washington State turned it over 5 times in the fourth quarter. So so that's basically what happened. I mean, first start with Oregon State. Oregon State their uniforms and their logo is just appalling. My policy is that if your face mask is not one color, it should not be on your face. So and their logo, I don't know why they changed it. I like their old logo, so much in fact that there we go. And they're a big passing school. They have they're getting a whole bunch of 30+ yard pass plays in the game. Um, and Sean Mannion, their quarterback, he utilized all his receivers. There's really not much defense from this Washington State defense, and that's pretty much what it was for the whole game. Was Oregon State walking all over them. Now Washington State, Connor Halliday is their quarterback. He's back from an injury after Stanford, and he played relatively well because this game was tied in the third quarter, and then Oregon State started to sort of blow it out, as you can see. There you go, ESPNU proving to all you kids that even the pros make mistakes sometimes. But yeah, he played mostly a good game until he started throwing picks left and right, turning the ball over, and who they actually brought in, who's a guy who I'm a fan of and looking forward to see, is Austin Apodaca. He's their backup quarterback, and he came in against Stanford and actually threw a touchdown pass. So, usually you don't see much press given to these players. In the first half, all they did was say, hey, he threw a touchdown pass when he was holding the extra point. But I'm really looking forward to seeing him in the next few years of the Pac-12. And yeah, that's really all there is to say. Washington State lost because they turned it over 5 times in the fourth quarter. Really hard to make up from that. And Oregon State won because they just kept driving. They just put together drives over and over, one on top of the other. And there was really no pressure from the Washington State defense. So, Mike, will bring you back on, talk about next week.
Okay, so Brian, next week I'm doing the very rare double dip. I'm going to be covering Florida State Clemson. And this game, Brian, it's one of the best games I think in this whole year. The only game that could possibly rival it would be Texas A&M and Alabama going at it. This is you're looking at a team here where you have a Florida State team, quarterbacked by Jameis Winston, and a Clemson team that's been very, very under the radar. Taj Boyd, he's slowly putting himself in that NFL conversation, and this guy, he's good, but he's very underrated. I feel like because he plays for Clemson and he doesn't play for a big name, a program with a lot of prestige, I guess, like Jameis Winston does. This guy, he's so good, so underrated, and I think he's going to have a great game. And my prediction for that one is that Jameis Winston, the freshman, is going to come out on top in a shootout, and Florida State is going to down number 3 Clemson. And then my other game that I'm covering is Notre Dame and USC, a battle, just an old-fashioned rivalry and a battle of the two colleges that I really want to apply to. And both of these teams have underachieved huge this year. USC looked a lot better last week without Lane Kiffin as their head coach. The quarterback situation in USC is still up in the air. And this is a Notre Dame team that's they've underachieved. Last year the defense was such a strong suit for them. Manti Te'o, the defense really ran through him. And I think, the defense needs to find some leadership, needs to get it together. And the quarterback situation for the Irish needs to kind of sort itself out so this Irish team can go deep into the season and really come up with a nice bowl bid that's really nice and not one of those, I guess, kind of, generic ones that some of the lower tier schools get. So really excited for that one, and I'm going to go ahead and predict it. Notre Dame comes out on top in this battle of underachieving college football schools. I'll send it over to you now, Brian.
All right. Yeah, you see Notre Dame and USC. It's not hard to see that they've underachieved. They've both been ranked at some point in this season, and then USC fired their head coach. That's two very big extremes on a football scale. And my game next week is UCLA versus Stanford. And this is a really interesting game because I saw it on the schedule weeks and weeks in advance. And originally I saw it as this is UCLA trying to upset a huge name Stanford. And with the loss to Utah, now it's really the other way around. Not only in the ranks, but as far as momentum. Stanford really did come out flat. Hogan did not put up big numbers at all against Utah. And UCLA was actually almost upset by Utah 2 weeks ago, so it's going to be a really interesting game to see which one. Even though there's different ranks, it's really hard to tell which one is the underdog.
Exactly, and I want to talk about Brett Hundley for a second. I love quarterbacks. You've probably seen that pattern already, Brian. But this Hundley kid, he's good. He doesn't get a lot of press at UCLA. I don't think he gets the press that he deserves. But this guy runs this offense well, and I really see him as a late first-round pick or maybe an early second-round pick just because he's so good. He has great poise in the pocket. He throws a great ball, great clean ball, and you don't have a situation where the talent he's going up against is in question because he plays in such a stacked Pac-12 league.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the UCLA team has definitely shown improvement. I remember last season when they played Stanford twice in a row to try to get into the Rose Bowl, and just fell short each time. And now we're definitely in a position where there is no way Stanford will sleep soundly through the night before that game, because they should be worried. They should be, because I mean, if they lose, they could lose their top 20 status, and that's really something to be damaging to the program, because they definitely want to go back to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, and I think you want to look at the quarterback play for Stanford. Hogan for the Cardinal, he's been hit or miss, and when he's on, I mean, he's on, and this Stanford team can beat any of the top 25 teams. I'd even make a case that they could probably give Alabama one of their toughest games of the year. But when he's off, I mean, this guy's off. He's out of his rhythm. He can't do anything on the offense. He really just starts to spiral. So if UCLA wants to win this game, they got to disrupt the quarterback play for Stanford. And if Stanford wants to win this game, it's all about finding a groove with your quarterback early and just expanding on that later in the game.
Yeah, and go back to your game at Clemson versus Florida State. I mean, you have the big name quarterbacks, and Taj Boyd I saw him as hitting every week, but against Boston College, I mean, his team did not come through just in general, and that really gave him a scare. I was afraid that they would surrender the number 3 spot to Ohio State, which I could not bear with. That'd be like the world crashing down. I do not want to see him in a national championship until I graduate college. So, I mean, yeah, they're really fighting for their lives here, Clemson, and Florida State is just rolling and trying to prove that they are the best of the ACC.
And Boyd's another one of those quarterbacks in the conversation to be 1 or 2 with Teddy Bridgewater. And I'm not completely sold on Bridgewater just yet, but I think if Taj Boyd comes away with a huge victory here against this number 5 Seminole team, he's definitely going to vault himself up 2 or 3 spots in the Heisman race. As I mean, this would be one of those signature wins that all the Heisman voters talk about.
Yeah, everyone will be watching. Thank you for watching this episode. Make sure to click like, favorite, and subscribe, and we will see you next week.
See you next week, everybody.